part of the growth mindset is just loving what you do, right? It's
Absolutely.
like if you can find that love, it no longer becomes work, and it's easier to grow because you just get more and more in depth and focused on it, right?
Welcome to The Growth Mindset, the podcast for ambitious real estate and mortgage professionals. Hosted by Adam Crosley and Rick Riddle, this show dives into entrepreneurial strategies, sales techniques, and mindset hacks designed to fuel your career growth. Get ready to learn from top producers, gain actionable insights, and start your journey towards success. Here's your hosts, Adam and Rick.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to this episode of the Growth Mindset. I got to tell you, doing the podcast is my favorite thing of the day. I wish we were making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on the Growth Mindset, just so I could do this all day for 8 hours a day. But
well, if we keep at it and we do it frequently enough, maybe it'll turn into something, right?
Right. So, but we do it now once a week.
That's what having a growth mindset's all about, right?
That's right. So this week we have a guest, Jeff Cheng, who is actually works for Crown Home Mortgage. He is one of our top producers, and we wanted to kind of pick his brain a little bit of what the growth mindset means to him. A little bit about Jeff. I will say he is in the growth mindset because he literally doubled his business this year and has gone was a good producer, didn't go from one loan to two loans. He went from doing probably about 20 million to about 40 million. So he's living the growth mindset. So we want to kind of pick his brain and what it means to him to be
and if I just want to interject as well, because I actually, Jeff, I've been your coach here for a little bit now, and Jeff, one of my favorite things about you is your story, how you went from it was an engineer, right?
Correct. That's correct. Well, thank you, Rick and Adam, for having me on this podcast.
Yeah, brother, and thank you for coming, man. Thank you for chiseling the time out of your day to to let us interview and tell us a little bit about yourself. But brother, one of my favorite things about you is hearing your story, how you went from being a successful engineer that saw a cap on his income and just dipped your toe into mortgage, figured it out, and then kind of burnt the boats and just started going full head into mortgage, into the unknown, with this like hopes and dreams of what you could do. And I know you've shared with me one-on-one, like what that's done for you in your life. So tell me a little bit about your story, brother.
All right. Well, I mean, I started as an engineer, graduated, UConn, went to school for 4 years, had a structural engineering background, and started, working right out of college, just like everybody else. Get out of college and start working. Quite frankly, it was a really tough job. I didn't really like it. I did get promoted to project manager. Things were going well, but salary was good benefits, but it wasn't me. I hated my life. It was a long drive to work, 52.5 miles exactly each way. So every day was
52 miles each day?
52.5 miles each way.
So you're driving 105 miles a day.
Every day.
In rush hour traffic, too. I'm sure it took a lot longer than an hour each way, too.
Yeah, on a good day, it was an hour. One time, I remember I was the governor did not shut down the departments, and we were stuck at work, and it was a big snowstorm. We were driving home. It was dark. Connecticut gets dark quick. It was snowing. I got stuck on the bridge, and they shut down the highway. I was low on gas. I was in the middle of the bridge, and my car was just piling up with snow. And I'm just sitting there. My gas is running out. I'm like, am I going to make it home tonight? And it literally took me 6 hours to get home that day. And in that car, I was just like, I cannot do this any longer. I just can't. I just can't.
Wild.
And, yeah, I know. And that was just it snowed a lot in Connecticut, and I've always had to drive in the dark because I had to get there early. I had to get back home early. It was a long drive. So I've experienced multiple multi-hour drives back and forth to work, and it just wasn't me, and I just wasn't happy. I never woke up wanting to go to work, and I started listening to a lot of the success books, right? In that first year in 2018, I probably read about 20 books. Through Audible, I listened to about 20 books, Grant Cardone.
You had a lot of drive time. So
Yeah, exactly.
It was the
So
4 books on that one trip.
exactly. So I just did a lot of listening, and I just had a different mindset at that point. Like I
Cool.
didn't want to live paycheck by paycheck anymore. I wanted financial freedom, and I found my why. After listening to all these books, everything just comes down to, what is your why? What do you want, and why do you want to achieve this goal of yours? And my why really just came down to being able to provide my family with financial freedom, being able to have them have the ability and freedom to choose what they want to do later in life, rather than needing to do that and having to make the money to survive. So I just took a big leap of faith. I mean, real estate was always my biggest passion. I've always wanted to be a real estate investor. I just never had the capital to get into it. And I just love real estate. So I got into the mortgage business because I'm good with numbers. And the first year was tough, just like any other business. The first year was super tough. I pretty much burnt out all of my savings that I saved up from the engineering job. And I was down to my last, I think it's $5,000 left. It was the last $5,000. My rent, I know I was trying to figure out how I'm going to pay the next few months of rents. And then all of a sudden, business started coming in. I started closing loans and things started picking up. And since then, I mean, honestly, business has been great. I mean, thanks to Adam's coaching, thanks to a lot of things that I've done in the last 6 years that kind of, just really pushed my business and myself to the next level. And I really found my true passion. Now I wake up every morning wanting to go to work. It's no longer a job, but more of a passion. So like people say, when you find your passion, it's no longer work. And I truly did find my passion, and I enjoy what I do today.
Well, it's funny. A couple of things that you said that really stood out. That part of the growth mindset is just loving what you do, right?
Sure.
It's like if you can find that love, it no longer becomes work, and it's easier to grow because you just get more and more in depth and focused on it, right? Which and kind of defining your why, it was probably like your aha moment, right? You're like, look, why am I doing what I'm doing? And sometimes, and I'll probably, I love quotes. I probably will brutalize one, but it's something like, sometimes you don't know, change doesn't occur till the pain becomes so great, right? It's kind of, and there's a better quote than what I just said, but
Yeah.
right. So you had so much pain at where you were, you're like, I'm done. I got to figure out a better way. And, it's kind of cool how you strategically thought of it, so.
Yeah, it's just like Grant Cardone once said, if a man does not have purpose in his life, you're walking aimlessly around Earth. And I just didn't have a purpose until I figured out what is that why, and the why is my family. And that's what really drives me to do what I do every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny. I think about entrepreneurs, and as I knew you were coming on this morning as a guest, or this afternoon as a guest, I was thinking about you, right? And one thing that you have that a lot of, I'll say, entrepreneurs, myself included, I won't speak for Adam, but Adam would probably agree to this, is that a lot of us have passion, a lot of us have fire, a lot of us have an entrepreneurial spirit. One thing that you have that I think really is a cool factor is you have discipline. And I don't, like a lot of us have these ideas and visions, and we're visionaries as entrepreneurs, and we get across a bridge and never really complete it, right? Or we don't take the firm steps of completing it. And a lot of times I'll call you or text you like, hey, I'm making my calls, right? Hey, I'm doing this. Hey, I'm doing right. Like you're so even today's podcast, you're like, I need to do it from this time to this time because I got this, and that discipline really, I would think you stand out greater than a lot of the people that even you can be successful and not have discipline, but when you have the talent that you have coupled by the discipline, I mean, that probably exponentially expands your growth.
I appreciate that, brother. That means a lot to me. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know I had this in me. Before this whole mortgage business, I was never in sales. I've never had a sales background. Everything was just engineer. So I didn't know I had it in myself until I actually put myself into my position and backed myself into the wall. Just like Adam said, I burned all bridges. I left a salary job, great benefits, retirement plan, everything. And I just jumped into 100% commission base job, and I was pushed up against the wall. I told you guys, I was down to my $5,000. I had nothing left over. I had a wife. I had my first son at the time. Now I have 3, so it would have been even worse. But I had 1 kid at the time, and I was pushed against the wall, and I just had to do whatever it took to succeed.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably that engineering mind, or that engineering discipline that you learned in college, right? Like the systems of an engineer, right? I went to college and I was a marketing guy, right? So I was the least of engineering style, but a lot of my roommates were engineers, and I saw how they thought and how they analytically, right, to build the bridge and all the math involved in that. Like that helped you in a career that's almost opposite to that, right? So I think that's a unique quality that you have.
I guess the 4-year college tuition paid off.
That's right.
Yeah. But I do think having the engineering background certainly helps in the production and the discipline, because I would have to imagine, like, I'm a sales guy, right? So like ultimately at the end of the day, like I have squirrel brain. Like I'm always bouncing from shiny object to shiny object. And sometimes for me, it's hard to stay focused and disciplined, but I got to imagine like having that engineering background. It's like 1 + 1 is 2. So, if I do X, then I'll get Y. And if we can prove that and show that, and Jeff, I coach a lot of people. You're one of my favorite people to coach, specifically because you're the most coachable, and you are an implementer. Whenever we talk about things, you're always like, hey, make sure you send this to me. Make sure you get this to me. And one of the things I love about that is because you're taking into action the things that need to be done so that you can get the result, at a high level. And I got to imagine having that engineering background and that different level of thinking has catapulted you to the success that you've had.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't discredit the engineering background. Definitely kept me very disciplined, as you guys would say, right? Obviously, because like you said, 1 + 1 only equals 2. There's no other way around it. So with that background, plus that drive, the motivation, and really when it comes down to discipline, I think it just comes down to the commitment, right? And staying persistent. One quote I heard, and I might be messing this up as well. If you don't have commitment, you never start. But if you don't have persistence, you never finish. So that always keeps to my mind. It's like I can start something, but I can commit to something. But if I'm not persistent through it to the end, I'm never going to finish it. So I think that's where the persistency comes, is because if I start something, I have to finish it. If I say I'm going to do this, I have to get that done.
Well, it's funny, one of my favorite quotes is, a good plan executed is better than a great plan never executed. And I think that a lot of people, hopefully there's people listening on this podcast that they have the drive, they have the passion, they have the why, right? Which are all important things to have that growth mindset. 100% commission salespeople are probably inherently have that, but successful entrepreneurs have the discipline, right? And the persistence and that drives it. And that's what you've done, in a short period of time. Obviously when you start in the mortgage business, you're 6 years in, right? 5 or 6 years in, 2 of those years were the two of the greatest mortgage years in history, right? And during COVID, and you've obviously thrived in that. But I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of LOs since then that are no longer in the business, right?
Yeah.
That had great years, those 2 years, spent their press clippings, said, wow, I'm a rock star. And you could have easily fell in that trap, right? Like new in the business, all of a sudden hit this 2020, and we've all hit it. I was at 20 years in the business when 2020 happened, or 23 years. It's like, man, look at me, I'm unbelievable. And then they fell off, right? But your drive and persistence enabled you to thrive to greater lengths even past that, so.
Yeah, those were definitely rough years, and I kind of fell into that trap as well. I mean, I got into business 18. 19 was a great year. I doubled my engineering salary income right off the bat. So I was like, oh, this is great. And then 21 hit. I almost like tripled, quadruple my salary at the engineer. And I was like, oh my God, is this how it's going to be for the rest of my life? Just growing every year. And then 22 hit, boom, everything just fell off the cliff. And quite frankly, I didn't have Adam's coaching back then. And that was a big downfall in my business. I would have to say midway through 2022, I had to basically rebuild my entire business because I didn't do what I am doing now then.
Yeah. You have to prospect on purpose. You have to have a good way to do it. And without having the plan, it's, especially when there's blood in the streets and nobody knows what the hell's going on. And it was a mess in 22. I mean, everybody was a cluster. It was hard. And that's why so many people got out of the industry. Even super successful people, pulled out. So that's awesome that you stayed persistent and continued to go. Because it's awesome, brother.
Well, there was no other bridges backwards. I had to move forward.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny. It's coaching is such an integral part, right? It's an integral part of what we do. But it's funny. I think about Tiger Woods, right? When Tiger Woods held all 4 majors at the same time, and on top of the world, number 1 by far and away, not even close. And he fired his swing coach while he held all 4 majors, right? Because not that he didn't get a coach, he switched coaches, right, to go to the next level. And successful people all have coaches. That's one thing I've learned, right? And whether it's a sounding board, whether that coach becomes a psychologist, an accountability partner, a friend, a mentor, a teammate. I mean, there's millions of things that coaching does, but I do believe, without coaching, you can't get to that next level, right? Because you need that person, whether it's a close advocate or a psychologist or somewhere in between, right? I think it's such an important aspect.
100% agree. I mean, back to 2021, I had a coach. I'm not going to name the company of the coach, but business was great, so there wasn't much to coach. Everyone just sat at the desk and the phones rang nonstop for refis during the 2-3% interest rates. But then afterwards, when things went bad and rates shot up to the roof, everyone stopped purchasing. That coach's platform and advice just didn't work anymore. So that was when I was very fortunate enough to meet Adam, and things really just turned upside. Since then, again, rebuilding from scratch and literally going from a great 2 years to a terrible year where I was down to, I remember when it started coming down, I was going down to like 1 loan, 2 loans a month when I was averaging 10, 15 prior to that. So you can imagine the big swing. Plus, things were great, and I kind of fell into that trap. I bought myself a brand new house, beautiful home for my family, and then business just went to crap.
Exactly.
And again, pushed up against the wall. I had to do whatever it takes to make it work. But again, you're right, Rick. Coaching is vital to a business, especially if you want to succeed in that business.
Yeah. I mean, every great football team, anybody who's been great at anything that's achieving records always has somebody there to help them see their blind spots.
Yeah.
But nice, brother. Well, dude, Jeff, thank you so much for carving out a few minutes today here to jam with us. You're an absolute rock star, and it's just really good to share your insights with a lot of people. So, brother, I appreciate you, and thank you so much for taking the time here today to jam with us.
Thank you very much for your time as well. I appreciate you all, and I love Crown.
Well, plug for Crown Home Mortgage if you guys are interested in.
Yes. Our purpose is really, and it is funny. We're all 3 of us are Crown employees or Crown, but it's not, it's not about Crown. It's about helping everybody, right? And helping all you listeners and expand in your career with hopefully these different tips and tricks that we bring every week with our podcast is like-minded people. And I will say, if you ever want to be a guest on our podcast, we love to talk to entrepreneurial minds, and we learn, Adam and I both learn each week from you guys as well. So reach out to us. I don't know how they reach out to us, Adam. I think it's somewhere in our on this podcast, but
it's on the link below, I think.
Yes. But Rick Riddle from Crown Home Mortgage and Adam Crosley from Crown Home Mortgage. You can Google us. I'm sure you'll be able to find us. But we'll probably have to do better of that type of promotion. But please, we love talking to entrepreneurial people and hearing their stories like Jeff's, and it jazzes us up and makes us better as well. So
absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you guys. Have a great day. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Growth Mindset, hosted by Adam Crosley and Rick Riddle. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your colleagues. Stay tuned for more actionable insights to fuel your career success. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not necessarily reflect the official policies, positions, or opinions of Absolute Home Mortgage Corporation or Crown Home Mortgage. The content is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice or an official endorsement by either organization.